What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Michael and welcome to FudgeMuppet, your place for everything Elder Scrolls. Today we're going to explore a feature we've always wanted that has never been in an Elder Scrolls game and is now more likely to than ever. What I'm talking about is the implementation of traits, perk-like effects you can pick at the beginning of your playthrough that provide permanent bonuses and often a corresponding drawback. In this video, I'm going to tell you why traits are sensational, why we're more likely to get them in Elder Scrolls 6 than ever before, and I'm even going to do Bethesda's work for them, at least the theoretical work, taking you through 20 traits we've thought through that we think would fit beautifully into the world of the Elder Scrolls 6. Many of us know of traits from Fallout New Vegas, however they were also in Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and Fallout Tactics. Bethesda made none of these games, and didn't put traits in Fallout 3 or Fallout 4. However, as much as Bethesda deserves critique for decisions they've made over the years, there's no denying that they tend to move forward with their new features. People loved perks in Fallout games like Fallout 3, and so it's not surprising that we got perks in Skyrim, a feature never seen before in Elder Scrolls games up until that point. As much as I'm not a fan of settlement building, even the heavy focus on it in Fallout 76 was largely due to Bethesda seeing how much fans loved settlement building in Fallout 4. From what Todd Howard has said, he's aware that fans crave a big shift back to heavier role-playing elements, and this is something he wants to emphasize in their upcoming game, Starfield. I say all this because Bethesda has decided to include character traits in Starfield, and so long as they can see that players enjoy those traits and appreciate this move towards more role-playing elements, then we believe traits in an Elder Scrolls game, while not guaranteed, are more likely than ever. Traits can change gameplay enough to make certain builds feel that extra bit more unique, and very importantly, they really help to define any Elder Scrolls character from a unique role-playing perspective. Like in Fallout games, players could pick up to 2 traits or none at all. Also, every trait doesn't have to be some big hitter. While some can be game-changing, other traits can function as small but tasteful adds to your build. As long as it's designed intelligently, I can't think of a single reason not to have traits in the Elder Scrolls 6. If we have more unique racial passives, the return of the attribute system, an enhanced version of course, the return of birth signs or of character classes, traits would only work on top of this to further flesh out your character. Of course, all traits need to be balanced with the rest of the game mechanics in mind, so just remember that when considering any percentages we suggest. We can't know ahead of schedule whether or not something would be too overpowered or not until we've got the game in our hands. These are ballpark numbers only, but that said, we're a fan of bigger numbers for things so the traits actually feel impactful, not like some plus 4% bonus just for show that ends up rather unnoticeable. Also, if any Skyrim modders out there are watching, I would be incredibly happy and honored to see any of these ideas carried over into a brand new Skyrim traits mod. You can tell us what traits you'd want to see in the comments below, but to get your imagination pumping, here's 20 traits that we could see as being cool options for Elder Scrolls 6, noting that there could easily be less. We'd always prefer quality over quantity. First up, we have attuned hands. Magical items turn hot in your grasp and seem unusually attached to your energy. Any enchanted weaponry you come across will be 20% stronger in your hands and gains 50% more maximum charge at the cost of making you 50% weaker to incoming magical damage while you're wielding it. The next trait is deep lore. You've always felt like a scholar at heart. Your passion for learning brings you 2 new skill points when reading skill books and provides for 20 in-game deep lore speech options. Your understanding of the world will allow you to advance certain quests faster or have them unfold in a slightly different way, such as accuse a Dwemer researcher of clearly lying, only to have him turn on you and attack, revealing his ill intentions ahead of schedule. This trait is mostly for role-playing and doesn't have a set drawback, however we envision that the speech checks themselves will land you in situations that can be beneficial or dangerous. For example, it may help you access a locked-off basement area of an alien museum where you'll be able to steal a unique circlet, but also give you the option to personally criticize Mehrunes Dagon for something he did hundreds of years ago, only to have him angered and summon 2 clan fears to attack you. It could also help expand Elder Scrolls lore in general and teach new players things they may not have known. Next, we have all or nothing. You put all your effort into the here and now with little thought for conserving energy. Your sprint is 20% faster, and all forms of power attacks deal 30% more damage. However, sprinting and power attacks cost 50% more stamina. I also thought it would be cool to have a trait similar to Confirmed Bachelor, giving you access to unique romantic dialogue and intimate conversation options that have you charm your way to better or simply fun outcomes. At first, I thought of the trait as unlocking such outcomes altogether, but then I figured why block intimate occurrences for most playthroughs when you could simply have that for everyone. Therefore, we think a better option would be the trait Seductive Charm. You're naturally flirtatious. Any speech checks regarding intimacy and romance will be twice as effective. A really cool trait we thought could feature is called Wanted. You took on a large debt you have no intention of ever paying back. You'll start with a massive 20,000 septums, but have thugs and payment collectors sent after you for your entire playthrough. These mercenary types would scale with you, and some of the stronger ones could prove quite the menace at times if they happen to find you while you're weak, or you're simply not prepared for how geared up they are. You could even have the option to pay back your gold if you yield to them, providing you with a way out if you ever grow tired of being hunted. Another trait, which would rely on Bethesda re-implementing a more complex disposition system, and even bringing back an enhanced fame and infamy system, is Polarizing Presence. You stand out like a Khajiit in Black Marsh. It's love or hate. People tend to have strong opinions of you. Fame and infamy outcomes are magnified by 100%. What this means is that if you're a hero, characters fond of famous good doers will love you, and those less ethical characters, often in the underbelly of the world, but potentially corrupt local figures of power too, will despise you. If you're a criminal, you'll find that thieves and assassins are fond of your presence, but they'll prove incredibly unwilling to help or provide information otherwise, such as in side quests if you're a hero. Here's a trait that would be incredibly cool, although I'm not sure if Bethesda would be bothered to pull it off. In Fallout New Vegas, there was a trait called Wild Wasteland that would make your playthrough wackier, providing funny Easter eggs or experiences throughout the game that wouldn't be there in a regular playthrough. So long as there's a heavy emphasis on this being cool and tasteful and not just a cringy meme machine trait, I think it would work really well. It could be called Touch of Madness. Perhaps you are blessed by Sheogorath, the Mad God himself. You'll never know for sure. This trait unleashes the most bizarre and obscure lore elements of the Elder Scrolls universe. Extra wacky content will be added, and some existing content such as random encounters will be modified. Bethesda could take inspiration from and expand much of the deeper lore that is often not clear in the game. For example, you could see some sort of magical meteorite crash into the ground, and from the wreckage bursts forth an Imperial Mananaut who starts rambling about what sounds like a bunch of metaphysical nonsense, of which about 10% you may understand. Your character could encounter things from Sheogorath's realm that have somehow spilled into Nirn. However, it would be coolest if they were truly unnerving, disturbing, and truly mad sights, not just cheese for everyone or a bunch of septums falling to the ground. And remember, these experiences are only there if you choose this trait. Elder Scrolls 6 could have a trait inspired by Fallout's fast metabolism trait and sharing the same name. Your health regenerates twice as fast, however you take twice as much poison damage. Consumables last half as long but are 50% stronger. Traits like this really shake things up and help to give your character a kryptonite, in this case poison, in addition to the benefits. The next trait is inspired by the force without effort bonus you get from Paarthurnax when you meditate on the word Fus. Simply put, for characters who want to roleplay being somewhat of a tank from the get-go, how about picking the trait Immovable Force? You are a force to be reckoned with, you don't give an inch and you always stand your ground. You'll gain a 50% increase in stability against staggering and a 30% increase in chance to stagger your foes. However, your grounded nature and heftier size make your jump height 30% lower, and you'll take 50% more fall damage. Another idea for a trait is one that functions alongside a religious worship system like that introduced by the Wintersun Faiths of Skyrim mod. If desired, you worship a chosen deity and follow their commandments to gain favor with them, which helps to power unique abilities and buffs they bestow upon you. Imagine the trait Bound by Virtue. Your life is given to the will of the gods. Religious favor is earned twice as rapidly but lost twice as fast if worship is not performed or actions against your god's desires are undertaken. A much appreciated trait for those looking for something unique could be called a Daedra's best friend, in reference to Skyrim's Clavicus Vial quest of the same name. Earlier in life, your adventures had you befriend, or enslave depending on who you ask, a Daedra. This trait grants you the ability to summon a scamp using a spell with a very low cost. Maybe he could be named Creeper, after the talking scamp merchant in Morrowind. Creeper would have some fun distinguishing character features such as a few piercings and would even have some unique lines of dialogue to say in particular situations. He'd scale with your character level and function as a fun and effective companion throughout your playthrough. Perhaps to balance out the spell, he would only be able to be summoned once per battle, regardless of the low spell cost. There could also be the Connoisseur. You have peculiar tastes not everyone would relate to, and a deeper understanding of all things consumable. You'll gain unique new benefits and drawbacks from many consumables, not including typical potions, common food items, nor the majority of ingredients, but you could, for example, gain a special 10% damage boost after eating a Daedra heart, gain 20% faster movement speed from knocking back some skooma, or temporarily increase your speech by 10 points after drinking a rare and highly sought after mead. Speaking of consuming, I see no reason why we should not have a cannibal trait. Why should a deranged character who feeds on corpses need to wait until they've done Namira's quest and received her ring before they can dig in? In Skyrim, it felt a bit off how Eola implied you've eaten human flesh before, and yet in-game you were unable to. The cannibal trait would allow you to do this, restoring 5% of max health and improving health regen by 25% for 5 minutes. I think that the Ring of Namira could simply enhance this, or bestow something far more impactful, such as increased melee damage and spell effectiveness after eating. For a very niche build, this could be combined with the previous Connoisseur trait to gain another unique effect when consuming corpses. Next up we have Wayfarer. You travel on the wind and hate being bogged down. You'll gain 10% faster movement speed and be 20% harder to detect while sneaking when your inventory weight is under 100. When it's over 100, you'll move 10% slower and have stamina costs doubled. How about Repulsive? You're blessed by Malakath, or so one might think. You're ugly in the most intimidating of ways. Disposition with others will be lowered by 30%, but you'll gain a 40% boost for intimidation speech checks. Requirements to instill fear via enchantments, powers, spells, or other perks will also be dropped by 20%. Another trait I think would be very welcome, especially if there's no alternate start feature, is Vampire. Begin your playthrough with a thirst for human blood. You could start as well-fed, and therefore your vampirism would not be overly noticeable. With a classic prison start, perhaps you fed on a cellmate as they slept, or are somehow getting by sucking blood from rats. If Bethesda wanted to put the effort in, they could even have a prisoner in another cell who is aware of your condition call you a foul monster. Overall, being able to begin the game with vampiric benefits and drawbacks would be really cool, and if there's multiple bloodlines in the game, you could have the option to be infected by them later on and take on new bonuses. We didn't think starting with Vampire Lord form or anything like that would be particularly balanced. Then we could have Monster Hunter. People have never been your biggest problem. Your rivals tend to run on 4 legs or have 3 eyes. Your expertise grants you 25% more damage against creatures and monsters. However, when it comes to humans, you're not as well practiced, doing 15% less damage to them. Another trait inspired from earlier Fallout games is Bruiser. You're a little slower, but a little bigger. You may not hit as often, but they will feel it when you do. Your melee strikes and block bashes deal 20% more damage, but your attack speed is reduced by 20% also. We think a trait inspired by the good-natured Fallout trait would be great for certain builds. How about one called Artisan? You spent your life building and creating things more than killing things. You start the game with -10 to your weapon skills, but gain +10 to enchanting, alchemy, and smithing. And finally, we have Noble. You were born into the upper echelons of society. You've seen so many haughty aristocrats and vying nobles that you're as familiar with them as their lips are with the king's boots. Those of the lower classes will carry great disdain for you, with 50% lower disposition, but you'll fit right in with those born or operating in higher places. In addition to a 50% disposition boost to all characters associated with royalty and riches, you'll also gain access to a handful of unique speech options to give you an edge throughout your playthrough in relevant situations. Traits would just be such a fantastic addition to any Elder Scrolls game, and I hope after listening to all of these ideas you've been convinced that this is the case. Here at FudgeMuppet, we're also huge fans of the Fallout New Vegas perk list for its unique role-playing options. However, it's unlikely we'll see that set up, as we expect perks to stay linked to skill trees. This is just another reason to have traits, as they give us exactly what we're wanting, a fun list of unique role-playing perk-like effects that can be chosen for a variety of character builds. Please do hit that like button if you enjoyed any of the traits we mentioned, especially if you want a deep lore trait, and subscribe to get more Elder Scrolls goodness in your life. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Michael. Thank you so much for all of the support you continue to give us on the channel. We really appreciate it, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.